Hello and welcome to A Friend Remembers review of Goldeneye, which is released in January 2023 for the Nintendo Switch and Xbox. This is a really weird re-release because, well, let's start with James Bond video games. If you go back to around the period after this game came out, there was a fairly healthy James Bond 007 video game franchise. There was a new fairly major AAA game every couple of years, and I think it was Goldeneye that set this trend going. This is the progenitor game of a franchise that hasn't seen a video game release since Daniel Craig's film Spectre. It sounds like there should be more original 007 video games soon, but in the meantime, at the start of 2023, the game that solidified first-person shooters could work on video game consoles, one of the best-selling games on the Nintendo 64, and a rare Nintendo licensed game from another franchise property, is being re-released. Now, this is a playthrough of the Switch version. If you really care about your HD visuals, it's had some slight graphical upgrades on the Xbox, but essentially on both versions, this is the same game. It's not a remaster, it's not been done up, it's using the same code. This is Goldeneye as it was played on the Nintendo 64, and if you are under, I'd say about 30, you're probably wondering, okay, you might have heard a lot about this game, but is it worth going back to? And the answer for that is difficult. It's worth going back to as a really significant and interesting early first-person shooter. You can draw a straight line from this game and the multiplayer, particularly the multiplayer aspect of this game, through to really modern mega hits such as Fortnite. However, that is over 2 decades and a half of evolution, of people tinkering with the controls, tinkering with the game design, not just improvements in hardware, but improvements in understanding about what works and what doesn't. Goldeneye was the first, which means it also does a lot of things wrong. To a modern gamer, the most obnoxious thing is going to be the controls. Now, there is a way to remap them to make them feel more like a modern day shooter, but when this game came out, the way video games first-person shooters controlled was not set in stone. So it's little things like you actually shoot with the left analog trigger, where it seems to become an industry standard that you shoot with the right analog trigger. It's a really little thing, but it shows that the way this game was designed, what they knew, the way they thought, is fundamentally different from the way people think about game design now. And that's a good thing in many respects. This game is still, when it's hitting on the good levels, this game is firing on all cylinders. Unfortunately, the controls are slow, they're a little bit janky. I actually recommend for people new to these controls, new to the game, don't jump in at the hardest difficulty. You might think you're a pro gamer, but the thing about Goldeneye is a lot of the levels don't give you very good directions on where you've got to go, so you'll be wandering in circles searching for what you're meant to be doing, with enemies taking pot shots at you the whole time with no regenerating health. Combine that with unfamiliarity with the controls and you're going to have a really awkward time. So if you're new to Goldeneye and you want to pick it up, do not just jump in at the hardest difficulty, not because I think you're going to suck and die too often, but that is likely because of the controls. But the larger problem is that the game doesn't scale difficulty by just giving you more enemies with more hit points that hit harder. The game scales difficulties by giving you extra objectives. So on the easiest difficulty in most levels, it's just a straight run to the end. Maybe you have to do something on the route, but you're playing as a spy. The idea is you have missions and objectives. You're trying to replicate the story of the Goldeneye movie, the James Bond movie from Pierce Brosnan's era. Now, the graphics can't do these characters justice. They truly don't look anything like their movie counterparts, but that's fine. This is cutting edge for 1996. The problem is, on the easier difficulty, it's usually not always, usually fairly simple to get to the end. There are some really obnoxious points where you just don't know where you're meant to be going, and the game is not very good. They didn't have the years of experience about how to telegraph players what to do next. The harder difficulty doesn't just give you more enemies and they hit harder and take more hits to go down. It gives you extra objectives. For example, you have to destroy all the files or take out all the security cameras or find the contents of a safe, but you've got to find the key to that safe. That means more time wandering around the level searching for things you've got to find and do on the way to completing it. And if you're struggling with the controls, that's just going to make it worse and worse. Honestly, the controls are absolutely fine. I keep going on about them, not because they're bad, but because I think a lot of players are going to be really hit like a dumper truck with how unfamiliar it is. This game is meant for you to take your time to master it, and you can master it. Put a little bit of effort in, play through the levels in easy mode to just learn the maps, understand how they work, get an idea of your surroundings and what you're meant to be doing. And then once you've got the controls down, come back and revisit them on hard mode. And it's not just an extra challenge because of, what's put in front of you in terms of obstacles, but the extra requirements, the little mini tasks that will assign you along the way, it does make these maps worth revisiting. But I would urge new players not to jump in on hard mode. That said, despite the telegraphing problems, despite the occasional point of just not knowing where you're meant to go, largely there are some fantastic highs in this game. There's also some really bad lows, particularly some what we'd now phrase as escort missions, where you've got another character, if you accidentally shoot and they die, game over, and they move really slowly. They don't stick close to you, they just stride nonchalantly through a hail of bullets, and it's annoying. But the other thing Goldeneye is really famous for is the multiplayer mode. Now, on the Nintendo Switch, there is a massive faux pas here, in that you cannot combine multiple local players with an online mode. It's fairly easy for me to get 2 people around the Switch where I live, but there are also people I'd love to play online with. And I thought this would be great. I could play 4-player multiplayer with 2 people online in another location and 2 people on the same console where I live. It doesn't work like that. You're either playing entirely local or entirely online, which is a shame, which means I'm pretty much limited to 2-player multiplayer, whether I'm local or online, which just feels like a missed opportunity. But save that, Goldeneye was an absolute time sink. It's got fantastic maps where you've got these big open spaces and a map, so you and another player have to go around and shoot each other in a couple of different environments taken from the game. But there's a good verticality, good different levels. All of this has been done again. It's been done better since. But to go back, and there's a nice rawness to this. It's not cluttered. It doesn't have all these annoying features that just get in your way. It's honest to goodness, simple fun. So I'd endorse Goldeneye. I think it's still worth revisiting in 2023. It's just good enough looking for the charm to come through. The controls are just solid enough for the jank to not overly irritate you. Yes, it's old. Yes, it's dated. Yes, it's never going to compete with the brand new games from 2021, 2020 and 2023. But it's not meant to. It's essentially a free game on a service to show you how far we've come. And if you play through just on easy mode, the single player mode is no more than a couple of hours, and there's some fantastic levels in there. It's at its best when you're in tight hallways and there's just hordes of enemies being thrown at you for you to mow down. It struggles in the big open areas, and isn't that kind of the trend of the last 20 years in gaming? We've been moving closer and closer and closer towards big open areas. Everything's open world, everything is vast landscapes. It's nice to play a game again which is just, you're here, go there, don't let anything get in your way, and go. I'd heartily recommend this game.